Sim racing is a hobby shared by millions the world over, and likely you as well as you've clicked on this video. However, it doesn't come without its problems. We're going to take a look at everything that we think is wrong with sim racing right now in this video. So, sim racing as a hobby is something that us here at RacingGames have a great passion for. Be it kicked off by love of motorsport and car culture, or growing up playing titles like Gran Turismo, we each have a love for virtual racing in one way or another. But, right now, we think the hobby has some big problems, just like any segment of the gaming industry. Let's take a closer look at those. First up, and we're going in hot, is this notion of physics. For a few select sim racers, the nuanced handling and physics in various sims is very noticeable. They may be actual race car drivers, for example, with first-hand experience driving the car in question, or simply have enough years driving / track experience to tell when something is completely off. However, a vast majority of sim racers to this day complain about physics in various sim titles. Chances are a large proportion of those complaining are not even old enough to drive, and no, rental karting doesn't count as driving experience when you're lapping the Nordschleife in a Porsche 919 hybrid. Not playing a game because you don't enjoy it is absolutely fine. At the end of the day, an opinion is your own and you're more than entitled to have it. But potentially keeping others from giving a title a go by moaning about it with no real reference to go off isn't the thing to do either. Let people try things for themselves. All of this doesn't go to say that there aren't games out there that are known for their wacky physics, be it inconsistent or just backed up by various real racing drivers' opinions. However, the vast majority of the major, dedicated sim racing titles do a brilliant job of trying to reflect how a car would react in various driving conditions. So, I guess the first point isn't really a problem with the sim racing industry, it's us. Next up, we have the increasing barrier to entry. Now, I liken this somewhat to content creation, and hear me out. No longer are the days of being able to get away with a cheap mic and webcam for most people. For those who are naturally entertaining or funny, it's a different story, of course. Now, production value on even the most basic content is rising. In sim racing's example, you absolutely can race with basic gear, or even a controller and mouse and keyboard if you really wanted to. But there will come a time when to make that next step, you need that next level of equipment. A basic Fanatec setup can set you back well over $1,000, and that's without a rig to attach it all to. That said, and to play devil's advocate to my own point, the Moza R5 is making waves in the industry, and as that becomes more accessible, so too should the playing field get slightly closer. However, there isn't yet enough competition for these budget, direct drive alternatives, something that I believe could go some way to bettering the industry. My third point concerns the games themselves. For many titles, the strive for graphical realism has potentially distracted from other parts of the title. Where the focus should be on making the games as real as possible, most drivers would rather the driving / car setup get as close to that as possible, rather than the appearance. A global shift to Unreal Engine 5, not that Unreal Engine 4 or many of the modern proprietary engines look bad, will make it a bit easier for studios to pump out the graphical element of these titles in a more timely manner. Unreal Engine 5 is an incredibly strong tool, and as such, we may soon end up with a return to that cutting-edge realism. Rensport, for example, could be a brilliant example of this. We'll just have to wait and see. My fourth point concerns the way these titles are managed, specifically the events that are supposed to lead our hobby into the mainstream, if that's something we even want. Not only are some games nowadays released in a horrendous state, NASCAR 21 is a great example of that, but the largest sim racing events of the year continue to be plagued by inconsistency in ruling or sportsmanship, and even in the basics like connection to servers. Online events are always going to be susceptible to these issues, but in 2023, it seems it should be easier than ever to ensure that the greatest events in sim racing at least take place. And finally, to play devil's advocate to my entire opinion, maybe myself and anyone who agrees with me is just wrong, and the rose-tinted glasses we use to look back on the then cutting-edge titles that we grew up with are just that, rose-tinted glasses. I would be naive to discredit the nostalgia I associate with games like Gran Turismo 2 and 3 from my childhood, where, for the first time, driving a car looked almost like it did on TV. That nostalgia, coupled with an ever-increasing selection, may be forcing our standards way too high, and expecting too much from the devs of these awesome titles. I would love to gauge your thoughts on that in the comments below. So that's what I think is wrong with the racing game and sim racing industry. Do you agree? Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and we'll catch you in another video here on the RacingGames channel soon.